Hey everybody, I'm Joe Hudson, and today I want to talk about measuring transformation. How do you measure your progress in transformation? And before I even start to talk about that, some people will use a measurement tool to beat themselves up. I'm not there yet. I haven't done it yet. I'm not high enough yet. Incredibly counterproductive. So if you're going to use a measurement tool, it's more of like a map. And it is not the territory, right? So it's a map. It's not, you're not actually driving on the road, you're looking at a map. That's the most important thing about using any kind of measurement tool. So the way I like to measure it is to say we have three brains. One is the prefrontal cortex, and that's your cognitive ability, that's your human side. Then you have the emotional component, which is the mammalian thing where you have the feelings. And so some people would call that the heart. And then you have, some people would call the gut, which is the reptilian brain, which is all nervous system. It's more like in the amygdala. You want to measure how the progress is in each. As far as measuring transformational progress in the head, so you can look at your sense of time and you can look at your sense of self and how they develop over time. And the more universal that they become, the further along on the path you are. So let me give you a direct understanding of this. Little kid, 2 years old, and you say, hey, your birthday's in 8 months, they don't get excited. But when you're like 50 years old and you're like, retirement's in 8 months, you're like, oh, you can feel that excitement. What happens is when you're younger, you can't see time in long periods. You get excited in a week or two. And then as you get older, you can get excited and think about and plan for stuff that is 2, 3, 4 years out. The next stage would be like generational. Oh, I'm doing something today for my grandkids. And then at some point, the thing implodes on itself or seemingly implodes on itself, and there's just the present. Similarly, the same thing happens with the sense of self. Ask a little kid, we know this cognitively, say, hey, what do you want for Christmas? They're gonna say, I want a G.I. Joe with a Kung Fu grip. And what does mom want for Christmas? G.I. Joe with a Kung Fu grip. And what does dad want? G.I. Joe with a Kung Fu grip. But as they get a little older, they can see, oh, I want a G.I. Joe with a Kung Fu grip, and dad wants a tie, and mom wants a Tesla, and they can see the difference. And so that sense of self starts changing. Sense of self that is me to family, to community, to tribe, to nation, and then it continues to grow into humanity, and it continues to grow into like the earth, right? Like, oh, I see myself as part of this entire ecosystem, and to take care of myself is to take care of the ecosystem. Or I see myself as this family, and to take care of the family is a way to take care of myself. But at some point, again, it implodes on you, and all of a sudden you see yourself as everything. Everything is you, and you are everything and or nothing. And so the sense of self becomes universal. On the emotional side of things, or on the mammalian side of things, or on the heart level, the way that you mark progress is through emotional fluidity. And emotional fluidity basically means that you can feel what arises in a non-reactionary way, express what arises in a non-reactionary way, no matter what it is. So you can feel the pain of life, you can feel the sadness of life, you can feel the fear, the joy, the excitement. And the result of that, the symptom of that, is a lot more joy. One of the sayings that I have is that joy is the matriarch of a family of emotions, and she won't come into a house where her children aren't welcome. And so I work with a ton of people where I see they've been holding on, they've repressed a lot of anger, they move that anger, and boom, they feel so much more joy. Or they've repressed a lot of sadness, they move the sadness, boom, they feel a lot more joy. And so that allowing all those emotional experiences to happen is that mark of the heart opening up. The interesting thing that happens is that as you start feeling all these things, at the beginning you're like, what do you mean? I can enjoy feeling sadness? What do you mean I can enjoy feeling fear? And the answer is yes. And because you're not resisting them, they actually feel different. And a lot of the pain of the emotional fluidity at first is your resistance to the emotions. It becomes less like there's sadness and there's fear and there's excitement, and it becomes far more like aspects of a diamond with like slightly different tonalities to it. Marking the transformational process in the reptilian brain or the nervous system brain is all about your capacity to enjoy pleasure, your capacity to allow pleasure in. One of the greatest definitions I've ever heard for pleasure is the awareness of energy moving in your body. I would say that it's more awareness of sensations in your body without resistance. And the more pleasure that we can feel, the more that our nervous system thinks it's safe. If we are safe, then naturally we take pleasure in being alive. If you think about that moment when you were like just looking over the sunset, or the wind was hitting you in that right way, or you were in that great conversation, you felt deeply connected. There's this experience of safety where you're not looking for the other foot to fall. You're not looking for the punch in the face, the attack that's coming. You're not thinking you're gonna get in trouble. You're just like in this place of enjoyment and pleasure. Pleasure, like anything, is something that you learn to grow into. As you learn to accept pleasure, as you learn to feel the sensations in your body, then your ability to have pleasure grows and grows and grows. And it doesn't really ever end. There's not like, oh, now I have maximum pleasure. It's like not how it works. And I don't mean pleasure like, okay, now I'm gonna go like have a massage and do yoga. I mean like the pleasure of right here and now. The pleasure of a breath in. So to sum it up, it's really important not to beat yourself up through the measurement process. The measurement process is more of a map. There's no rush to get anywhere. You're not gonna be a better person on the other side. Actually, on the other side, the idea of better or worse goes away. And the idea of like a you that's there to be measured starts to fade away as well. But if you are measuring yourself, the 3 ways to do it that I highly recommend is from the human brain, the cognitive prefrontal cortex, the heart, the emotional part of your body, and through the gut. All right, thank you very much for watching. If you are interested, you're welcome to subscribe and or just tell us what you want to hear about, and that'll give me good things to create content on.